Brexit. I called it the day before. I was opening up Turnberry the day before Brexit. You were there. Many of you were there. I mean, I recognize that many of you were there, and they asked me whether or not Brexit would happen. I said yes, and everybody smiled and they laughed. And I said, yes, it's going to happen. In my opinion, it was just my opinion. The next day they had the election, and I was right. But I stay out of it. I think Boris is very capable, and I think he'll do a good job.
Welcome back, America. Morning Glory. Bonjour. Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt in the ReliefFactor.com studio. That was President Trump minutes ago in the United Kingdom saying he called Brexit, but he's staying out of the election. I'm joined by Peter Baker, one of the White House correspondents for the New York Times, author as well of the very excellent book, Days of Fire, Bush and Cheney in the White House. Good morning, Peter. How are you? Hello, Peter.
How are you?
Good. There you go. You're off of mute there. I'm great. I was with one of your subjects last night, the Vice President. Vice President Cheney and I were together last night, and I didn't get that chance to ask him, but did you ever ask him if he liked Days of Fire?
He was very respectful of the book. I think he told me at one point that there are things in it he didn't necessarily agree with, but he thought overall it was a fair and accurate, I think, portrayal. He did give me a few interviews for the book, which was great, very generous of him to help out. And we've had interviews on other subjects since then. So
I think Days of Fire may be the most fair portrait of the Bush-Cheney White House, and that's why I recommend it to people. And what are you working on now, by the way? You working on another book? You're working pretty hard. I don't know if you have a book leave ahead of you.
Well, we've got my wife and I, Susan Glasser. You know her, of course. She and I have a book coming out in May, a biography of James Baker, the former Secretary of State, who actually is very good friends with Dick Cheney.
Yeah,
so
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, first time that anybody's done a biography of him, which is kind of odd because he's such an interesting and important character in our national life the last 3 or 4 decades. Probably nobody had their hand in more important things over that period than he did. Secretary of State, obviously, at the end of the Cold War, ran 5 presidential campaigns, Secretary of Treasury, White House staff. Pretty interesting guy.
You know, I think I told you this, or maybe I told Susan, the fetching Mrs. Hewitt's father, Colonel Wilhelm, was Jim Baker's officers candidate school instructor. He was so we get, out of the blue, we get a note from Jim Baker when my father-in-law was ill. He's passed away, saying, Colonel Helmer, thank you for all you did for me years ago. What a gracious man. It must be a joy working with him.
Well, he did cooperate with the book, which made it a lot better. Obviously, we spent a lot of time going through his papers. He kept everything. And I think the one thing about him that's really interesting is he has a lot of respect on both sides of the aisle, which does make him kind of an unusual figure these days. A lot of conservatives were not happy with him, of course, when he was in the Reagan and Bush administration, thought he was too willing to work with Democrats, too willing to compromise principle. But I think that, in a way, he stands as an exemplar of a kind of Washington we don't see a lot today, which is tough partisan, very ferocious campaigner during the election season, but when it was over, he would put that aside and try to find ways of moving forward, even if it's networking with people he didn't agree with.
Now, this brings up a very interesting point. Attorney General William Barr, this is his second tour of duty as Attorney General. He served in the cabinet with Jim Baker, didn't he?
He did, exactly. Yes, indeed.
Did you talk to Jim Baker about Bill Barr?
Jim Baker's not a fan of Bill Barr, not because of anything that's going on right now, but Bill Barr, if you remember, at the end of the Bush administration, Bush 41, authorized sought the appointment of an independent counsel into a small affair people have forgotten about, looking into the passport files of Bill Clinton when he was a candidate. Jim Baker thought that was a wrong move on his part. It created a 3-year investigation that didn't leave him very enamored of the former Attorney General.
But, what's interesting about that, it was a Contra party decision on the part of Attorney General Barr. He went against his party when he did that. And whatever people thought about it, he thought that was the law. And, Peter, what I was driving at here is I think a lot of people outside the Beltway forget what an esteemed lawyer Bill Barr is. I mean, the resistance is trying to paint him as some kind of partisan figure, and we get that from the Hill and from Democrats all the time. But he's a giant of the law, and people know that, or at least they knew that until he decided to come back and do the second time around at DOJ.
Yeah, he obviously had a lot of experience before coming in. We don't see people return to the post of Attorney General for a second round very often. And I think, but it is a different position he's in right now. He's got a different kind of president. He's a different kind of circumstance that makes it more of a lightning rod position. Any position he takes on a lot of these issues is going to be suspect by at least somebody or another, whether he agrees or disagrees with the IG. Got a story overnight about the disagreement he has with the Inspector General on the question of the origins of the Russia investigation. Very interesting. I would like to see how that plays out and see what he says out loud in public.
I've only met him once. I've only had one conversation with him, but I left that, and I had known him by reputation. We share many good friends in common. I just esteem his ability. Today, the Washington Post says, Barr disputes key Inspector General finding about FBI's Russia investigation. Your paper, in a Katie Benner and Michael Schmidt article, says Barr is said to doubt Inspector General's finding on Russia inquiry. Color me skeptical of any report that I don't hear Bill Barr saying, because what he said about the Mueller report was mischaracterized by left and right. I will wait to hear him say, because he actually picks his words very carefully. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I think he does. I think he knows what he's saying when he chooses to say it, and he hasn't said this out loud yet. We'll see whether he chooses to make a public statement to the effect that the people talked to us about last night. So, you're right. I mean, obviously, in a sense that until he says it out loud, we won't know exactly how he frames it, exactly how he feels about it, what his justification is. There's also, of course, the John Durham investigation, whether there's some bearing on this question from wherever he is, turning up or not turning up, as the case may be. So you're right. There's more to be heard on this.
Now, Peter Baker, you, like me, have a few Trump tattoos, and I call that whenever the president takes a smack at you on air or in public or on Twitter, you got a Trump tattoo. And I think I've got 3. You probably have 6. It's sort of like the Buckeye stickers on the top of the #1 ranked Ohio State Buckeye helmets. But does that change the way that you cover the president at all?
No. The truth is, it is what it is. I mean, this is the way he operates. And I was talking to a class last night. Every president I've covered, gets mad at us at times. This one takes it to a different level. I mean, what worries me is not that a president is unhappy with our coverage. That happens from time to time. I think more concerning are things, are language like enemies of the people, things like that are more concerning to me. But I don't care if he wants to take a shot. That's fine.
Yeah, I've always rejected enemy of the people because of its Stalinist roots. I don't think the president really gets that. But in any event, what I wanted to get at is, if Bill Barr says A, are you going to believe him? I mean, do you have any reason not to believe Bill Barr? You might have reason not to believe a lot of people, but I have no reason not to believe Bill Barr when he speaks.
Well, yeah, I think there are two questions, right? Is it a factual assertion on the one hand, or is it an interpretation of law or interpretation of those facts on the other? People are going to obviously subject his interpretation of the law and the facts to their own point of view. If you're a Democrat, you're going to look at it one way. Republicans are going to look at it another way. Maybe even some Republicans within the party might look at it. He's at this point, he is an electric figure, right? He is kind of a lightning rod because he did come out of the Mueller experience with the point of view of seeming more of an advocate than a dispassionate observer, as opposed to, say, Jeff Sessions, who came out on the bad end of President Trump, who didn't think he was who was loyal to Trump, basically. And I think that anybody in this Department of Justice is going to be, at this point, a lightning rod one way or the other. You're to this or you to that. So there's no question that he had a lot of credibility coming in his previous stint. He spent some of that credibility now, and the question is whether or not, I don't think he'll ever be able to convince everybody of his point of view. And my guess is he doesn't care too much.
I know he doesn't care too much from my one conversation with him, but my point is, in the objective world where facts are facts and there aren't alternative facts and there aren't crazy conspiracy theories, Bill Barr is a paragon of the law who has been that way. And I've never, like I said, I've met him exactly once. I've known that for 30 years, and I think people in America need to know that the Attorney General, whatever he comes out with on Durham, on the Inspector General report, I'll just accept because he's earned it. And I think that people in the paper business or the radio business or the media business generally do a disservice to the country when they do not hold up people who have earned credibility as people who have earned credibility. Last 30 seconds to you, Peter Baker.
Well, I understand that, but remember, it's also our job to scrutinize people in power. People in power are, by definition, people who make mistakes and have points of view and ought to be subjected on any point. Let Democrats,
of course,
we ought to be subjecting them to proper scrutiny, and then people can we just make a judgment based on the information we can help them and the context we can help them understand, and then they come to their judgment, the one that you've made or the one that other people might make.
Of course, I don't disagree with that. I just think we start from a presumption of credibility that has not been dented to date with Bill Barr. Peter Baker, always a pleasure. My best to your wife, Susan. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Don't go anywhere, America. Coming right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portion